I'm certain that you've used root pseudo-class in your CSS countless times, at least when you're dealing with CSS custom properties or CSS variables. But do you know exactly what root represents, why we're using it, and what are some potential pitfalls? Here's everything that you need to know about root pseudo-class. Root pseudo-class represents top-level element in the document tree. What does this mean? In HTML, top-level element is HTML tag. On this demo, I have developer tools open, and you can see right here we have HTML tag, which would be the top level element of this document tree. So if we define a root element in CSS here, say root, and let's define a variable here, my color is going to be white. And as you see, we have this very variable on our HTML tag. So this verifies that root actually represents HTML tag, but the difference between root and HTML is, well, apart from specificity, because a root pseudo-class has higher specificity than HTML element, CSS can be used in HTML format, as you already know, but it can also be used in SVG format and also in XML format. And in those cases, when we're using CSS and SVG, there is no HTML element, there is top-level SVG element. So in that case, root pseudo-class will represent the top-level element for SVG, which will be SVG tag. So essentially, if you're using root pseudo-class, you will cover all your bases, and if you apply CSS that you've written to SVG element for one reason or another, it will work there as well. Let's try this out on this demo really quickly. I will apply this my color custom property to paragraph. And color here is going to be var minus minus my color. And the color already is white, so let's just actually change it to yellow. And as you see, this is working. And if we change this to HTML, it will work as well. There's no difference there. But if we switch to SVG, so let's jump quickly into Visual Studio Code, where I already have prepared an SVG file for a demo. And this is this spiral we have right here. And this is the code for this particular SVG. So we can add CSS to this file. And I'll just create a style tag, and we'll set color on our root element, which in SVG will be this tag, SVG tag. Root is going to have custom property, my color, and it's going to have value yellow. And if we apply this to our SVG element right here, color is going to be var minus minus my color. You can see in the preview right here that it works exactly as you would expect. But if we switch this to HTML tag, you'll see that this no longer applies because, well, there's no HTML tag here present, so nothing to apply there. But here's the deal. This only works within SVG as a whole. If we were to use this SVG code on our HTML page, let's jump back to our CodePen demo. So I will add it right here below my text. And let me just comment out our CSS code. And you see here that our yellow color is still applied, even though we have HTML tag. Now, why is that? This variable is resolved because, well, there is an HTML tag present in this particular document. So effectively, this makes only difference when you're dealing with SVG files as a whole. And while we're talking about defining custom properties on top-level element on root, it actually might not be a good idea to define all your variables on root. If you're dealing with a bigger project, if you have all your custom properties defined on the root element, it might become very cluttered very soon. So it's a better practice to actually define your custom properties in the place where you need them. If you have multiple components in your project, maybe your header component, maybe sidebar component, whatever, you can define properties related to that particular component on that particular component. So instead of defining everything on the root pseudo-class, you can actually define custom properties that you want to have specifically available on your header component on, well, header class, for example. So here you can create another property, maybe color 2, and define it as, well, let's say blue. So practically speaking, using root instead of HTML does not make any real difference for you, for your project, most likely, unless in some edge cases, if you want to apply exactly the same CSS to SVG, for example. There are two potential pitfalls in using root pseudo-class to define your custom properties, and that is related to the selection pseudo-class and backdrop. Regarding selection, in Chrome, at the time of recording, there's a specific experimental flag you can enable that will break this inheritance. So if you define a custom property on the root, it will not be inherited in selection element, so you won't be able to use it right here exactly like this. And there is also a similar issue with the backdrop pseudo-class, so just something to keep in mind if you're going to be defining your custom properties on the root element and you end up in a situation that you don't know why your custom property isn't working within selection or within the backdrop pseudo class. If you want to learn more specifically about why is this happening, I'm going to add links to the description of this video, so check those out. But effectively, does this make any real difference for you, for your projects? Well, not really. It's just an industry-wide standard that everybody is using, and now you know exactly that root in HTML will represent HTML tag, in SVG will represent SVG tag, and in a different language, it might mean something else. Thank you so much for your attention. My name is Zoran Jambor. I will see and hear you in the next top-level document element, or rather, in the next video.